You have to adapt and overcome. But I am so glad to be here. Tonight we will be talking about wrestling with God and wrestling with chalkboards. And we have our dear guest, Hannah, here, and the mascot of the show, Jazzykins, who has already racked up quite a lot of treats from Cody. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate it. He is so amped. He loves his Uncle Cody. I mean, don't we all? We'll do crunches and then we'll get right into the show.
That was very kind, Cody.
There's more. There's another one, bud. And there's some more. Thank you so much for... Oh my gosh. He's gonna be such a chonkamonka.
He's a cute one, though.
He's so freaking amped. Oh. Okay. Oh gosh, they have slobber on them. That's hilarious. And that one. Do we say...
He's going at it.
Thank you, Uncle Cody. We wave, right? That's a good boy. Thank you. And I think this brings it up to the right number. Okay. And he will be right here, keeping us company. And probably spinning around because he realized that chair can spin and has become unhinged with the spinning power ever since. Okay. We are here. Would you like to tell your chalkboard story before we get the show on the road?
Sure, I'd be more than happy to. I guess it wouldn't be me here with you if something didn't happen. So that's chalkboard in the background that is close to my height fell on me beforehand. So that was really fun. My head broke its fall. The chalkboard actually came out of the frame. It's back together and temporarily up there. Hopefully nothing worse happens, but no promises. Could be operator error. So, but my head's okay as far as we know. I mean, there's no promises for that either.
Time will tell, but you know.
Yeah.
At least now, if like things just go wild, you have an excuse. You're like, guys, it's not my fault. Like, I did a great job for a chalkboard falling on my head.
Totally true.
It's fine. I'm kidding. You're going to be amazing. We love you. Where Hannah stands. Everybody's here for you and Kat. And also, we matched tonight, which we didn't even plan to do.
We've got the blue going on. I love it.
Sorry, somebody in chat goes, just have Nick fix it. And I'm just like, kind of like laughing, being like, so honey, how was your day? Oh, okay, yeah, how was your day, Hannah? Well, you see, this massive chalkboard fell on me like a cartoon.
This is my life though. Like this is 100% my life. Like he will not be surprised whatsoever. He's probably listening right now and it's probably like, of course it fell on her head. Like, of course. So
hi,
yeah.
Nick, we love you.
Yeah, I have 1,000 stories like that where craziness just falls apart all over me with me in the middle. It's craziness. It's life.
I feel that. Yeah. It's one of like the many things that we have in common.
Yes.
So, sure. Getting into the show, you know the first question I always ask my guests, because you're always in chat and now you're on this side of the screen. Right to see your face.
Yeah, it's totally different being on this side. Usually I'm causing shenanigans on the other side. So,
and now you get to cause your shenanigans live on camera.
I do.
So, what are your first memories of religion?
So my first memories of religion, gosh, there's a part of me that remembers like really little silly things from like not necessarily vacation Bible school. I don't even know if people in your audience know what that is, but maybe similar kinds of classes for pre-K students, and but like even like toddler things like patting the Bible and that kind of thing, like little songs and that sort of thing. Growing up in Bible school, I would say a couple notable ones would actually be one that involves my grandma on my mom's side. Um, she used to teach Sunday school, and and she didn't do it for a long time, but just seeing her and getting, I'm not going to cry right now. I'm not going to cry when we're just starting, but she's struggling right now, and remembering her as a teacher and as someone who um, was really deliberate and intentional about our faith and our family, um, that is still near and dear to me. Um, Not long after her, there was another wonderful woman um, who also taught Bible school, and she just had the most incredible smile, the most incredible joy. She just radiated love and hospitality and warmth, and was an incredible teacher. And then last one that I'll add on here are my Sunday school teachers who I ended up volunteering with um, once I was in middle school and in high school for a little bit. And their names are Linda and Lee Clement. And they were just the most fantastic teachers of scripture. They would go through the Bible. I can't remember if it was every 2 years or every 4 years, but they would go through the entire Bible, and they put together the most realistic, elaborate costumes, um, scenery, backgrounds, everything. Um, I've shared with some friends of ours before that they made a 2 scale um, Ark of the Covenant and tabernacle and
Wow,
everything
that's
for the
incredible.
church to go and experience once. So they were so incredibly dedicated, and so I guess my first memories of religion, although they were followed fairly quickly by some pretty difficult ones. My first memories were ones of people with great faith and um, who were extremely dedicated and committed to sharing their love of God and the Word. So,
Thank you so much for sharing that.
yeah,
There was actually something I was going to send you the other day because a little Substack note popped up and it said that your grandmother's prayers are still protecting you. And I was like, oh my goodness.
yeah,
And yeah. And it sounds like that's very much true of you as well.
I think so. She's, that particular grandma, and really our grandmothers on both my side of the family and Nick's side of the family have gotten to a point where they're not quite as outgoing as they used to be, and so we miss that a little bit, but we're still loving every moment we have with them.
Do they, if you don't mind me asking, just
No,
because
oh yeah,
Kyle and I are in a very similar place,
yeah.
do either of them do that thing where they like kind of isolate themselves when there's like actually an event and then they're like, no one even talked to me the whole time. And it's like, because you were in the entire opposite part of the place.
So I would say no,
Mm,
but I don't mean to tell on my mother-in-law,
mm,
but my mother-in-law might say it differently because to I won't say which, but how one treats her on occasion,
mm,
um, yes, that seems to unfold. Um, but for the most part, with Nick and me,
mm.
they're pretty chatty. So Nick always teases me and says that me and his grams are like birds because we just chirp 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 chirp. So yeah.
Oh, it's so cute. I'm best friends with Kyle's grandmother too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wonderful to have their wisdom and especially with Nick's Grims and Pa before he passed, uh, just their love and their relationship and their commitment to the community that was around them was just an incredible example. So many good things there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to your childhood experiences, how do they shape your perception of God?
Oh, good gracious. Let's see. Um, okay, so we talked about, my first memories.
Mm,
A lot of those were really positive. Um, and I would say that God put people in my life along the way um, that really shaped and encouraged my faith to keep going. But at the same time, it wasn't long after some of those sweet memories um, that a lot of difficulties started unfolding in life. Um, I would say I have memories of being in kindergarten and first grade, even where our household was extremely dysfunctional,
yeah.
and everyone has a different side to their story, and I
Mhm.
want to be careful to honor everybody here as much as possible. And before we go much further, I will probably go ahead and ask if we can pray. But I will say that things turned quickly from me feeling like I had such a strong relationship with Jesus
Mhm.
and such a strong connection with Jesus and feeling so much joy and hope to very quickly seeing that faith um, entailed a lot more than all the positive good things. Um,
Yeah.
that there's a lot of strife to faith in a life of faith, and so that has challenged me and made me someone who I feel very deeply and passionately for my faith
Mhm.
and for the church, even for all my brothers and sisters. But I also see that there's a lot of areas where the church desperately needs to make some changes, where we need to do better at loving people, at serving people, um,
Absolutely.
and and just getting along with each other, among a number of other things. But but before we get too much further, would it be okay? I know it's a little bit late into the podcast for
Absolutely, girl.
for a
For
thousand reasons, including the chalkboard, but I meant to start out with prayer. So if everyone is okay with that, and
of
you're okay with
course.
that, okay, all right. Father God, thank you so much for the opportunity to get to be here with Frida today. Um, thank you so much for all of my friends in the chat, all the people who typically are typing with me and saying silly things. God, I pray that you just bless each and every one of them, Lord. Bless those friends who keep things fun and spirited, and bless those who give their wisdom each week. I just pray that, Holy Spirit, you would have me say the things that you want me to say. I know that I am so imperfect and I'm going to mess up in one way or another, and that I already have in 1,000 ways, but your grace is made perfect in our weakness. And so I just praise you for that. I thank you for that. And I pray that whatever it is that you would like me to say tonight, God, that you have me speak that truth. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that beautiful prayer. I know we're going to be diving into some harder things as the show goes on.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for your candor and for, honoring the experiences that you've been through, and for being willing to share them with us so that we can learn and grow alongside you.
Absolutely. I will do my best. There's no telling how teary-eyed or messy or angry things might get, but we will dive in as deep as possible. So
you won't be the first person that's cried on my show. I promise.
Good. That's good.
So
maybe that's good. I've seen other people cry, and it's typically not a bad thing. So
yeah. It's always hard though, like when my guest is crying like a little bit, so like I want to like cry with them, and I'm like, no, I have to be strong for them. Like,
no. You're always a wonderful hostess, and gracious and graceful. So
thank you. That means a lot coming from you.
Thanks. You're very welcome.
Do you think she can tell that I think she's really awesome? Let me know in chat.
The feeling's mutual. So
can you share a pivotal moment in your journey of wrestling with God?
Okay. It depends. What do we want to talk about as far as wrestling with God? What do we want to go?
Because I know there's been some.
Do we want to go family? Do we want to go like which wrestle session do we want to dive into?
What was one that immediately kind of comes to mind for you? Because I know there's stuff in the, OG Hannah Testament.
Yeah.
And there's more recent events.
Yeah.
And yeah. I know that there's been a lot of bad days, but I also know that God has helped you survive 100% of your bad days.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many. If anyone ever needs a sad story to distract them from their own misery, I'm more than happy to oblige. I don't know. Okay, so I guess one of the things that stands out most to me is one that I don't want to say was recent, but it was about 5 years ago now. And that would be my last miscarriage that I had. Gosh, there were 1,000 reasons that brought me to grapple with God and faith in general. But I would say that to start, it's important to know that I'm an adoptee. And so I have always, despite having a dysfunctional family household growing up, I have always been so grateful for my birth mother. Her courage to to give birth to me despite her circumstances, has always amazed me, has always left me in awe. And one of the first things when I first met her, one of the first things she asked was if I was angry with her. And I was like, no, like I could never be angry with you. You gave me this life. And there have been times where I have looked at God and completely just straight up asked him, why am I here? Like,
Yeah.
if I'm not meant to be here, take me from this earth now. But at the very same time, knowing that someone valued my life enough to face all the social pressures that she did at such a young age, that has always amazed me. So I'm extremely pro-life, always have been. But when I had my miscarriage, that just took it to a completely different level. Looking back on it, it's very obvious that I was pregnant. There were definite symptoms and signs, but at the time I had no idea. And so, I found myself in labor at approximately 11 weeks, while my husband was out of the country by myself, completely alone. And
that must have been terrifying.
Yeah. I didn't know what was happening. As you know, we've talked about things privately, but I've had, a lot of health issues that I've had to work through. And so I was really concerned that it was one of those health issues. And
yeah, understandably.
And instead it was this surprise that was both the most horrific thing that has ever happened to me, and at the same time, the most beautiful thing that has ever happened to me. To be alone in all of that was so painful. And even thinking about it now, it probably sounds silly because the dog that we had at the time, we had gotten the day after we came back from our honeymoon. And so she was with me through all of it. She was the only reason I got up off the floor.
That doesn't sound silly.
It's little things like that in life. But to see intact an 11-week-old baby, that was, to this day, after all the other things that I faced, I still think that is the hardest thing that I have ever faced. To experience death inside your body.
Yeah, that must do something to your. Yeah, I honestly cannot imagine.
It's something I would never wish on anyone. And it's the death of your child, and one that I didn't even know that I had. And so, it was this extreme just flood, inundation of all of these feelings, of all of this pain, and all of this heartache. And at the same time, realizing that life was that much more precious, seeing this child, this tiny baby, and feeling like, again, I'll probably sound crazy here, but
you don't, babe. We're all here for you. If you look right now on the screen, you can see how we're
I
loving you up.
appreciate it. I appreciate it from everyone. But at the same time that I ate to be able to hold this child and it not be dead, for it to not have passed, there was something, I believe God's Spirit, telling me that he had this child already, and that that they didn't experience pain in this life, and that as much as I felt love for this child, that God felt love for me so much more. And to have that experience, to have that realization, was overwhelming. It was frustrating because I grew up experiencing abuse and experiencing things that made me wonder how a good and loving God could allow for the things that happened. And at the same time, it was so evident that there was a good and loving God, because there was this beautiful creation and all of the misery that it was. And so, out of everything that I've experienced, and there's been so much more, but
you're incredibly strong. I'm really proud of the woman that you are.
Thank you. Out of everything, I would say that has probably been one of the things to make me wrestle with God the most. That was a solid probably 2 years of me really asking God why and seeking answers. And there's still times I do. It's the loss of your child. And so, every birthday that comes around, or every family gathering, or every time, I see their cousin, or, just little things like that, it's rough. But I also know that, and Mother's Day is coming up, so, that's always fun.
Oh, yeah.
But
from two different sides, but I still get
it. But at the same time, again, it's the wrestling with God. It's knowing that there is immense pain in this world, and even more than I've experienced. And yet that he is working all things for the good of those who love him. So, in all of that, as painful as it's been, it's made me even more pro-life, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And not just for babies, but for people. It's made me realize how much more precious this life is, and how precious we are to God. And that seems so counterintuitive because if you look at the circumstances alone,
Yeah.
you don't see that. You absolutely don't see that. And yet he works in all of it.
Exactly.
And I think there are some things, I don't have an explanation for all of it. And I think there are some things we never will, you know, maybe ever, maybe this side of eternity, maybe ever. It may just be one of those things that his ways are higher and his thoughts are higher and above us. But I'm learning to be grateful for the love that it has grown in me. And I'm learning to trust him more. So as difficult as that is. So the logical part of me and the skeptical part of me doesn't particularly care to do that. But
how do you reconcile those two things together? Going through what you've gone through. I mean, I know myself having gone, we're friends, so you know a lot of it.
yeah.
I've been doing this show for almost a year, so y'all know a fair bit of it. So, I have difficulty sometimes, or at least during, larger times when doing that reconciliation. But is there anything that you can share that might help our viewers who are going through something similar and trying to reconcile the pain of their past with the fact that we do serve a good and loving God?
I thought about how I would answer that, because for me it so much depends on the person and I think what they need to hear. Um, for me, I don't know. This probably isn't a good Christian answer, and it's probably not what a lot of people would go toward. But
We
for
we
me,
prefer real, you know?
yeah, yeah. For me, I reconciling it is difficult to do if you're meaning it in the sense of trying to make some sort of sense out of it or having the good outweigh the bad or like I don't know. Actually, I would probably say that I don't think that there are in all circumstances. I don't think that's possible in all circumstances. I think that there are hellish things that people experience in this life that that do not make sense. And that are they're beyond what we want to say, what we want to admit, what we want to speak out loud. They're they're just absolute hell. Um, there are people in the Middle East and in Africa right now who can't even meet for church, like as part of church. I mean, there are women who get together and read over hymns just to be with one another and to worship God, and they read them silently, like so that they don't get found out. I mean, there are people who are treated in absolutely inhumane ways, and so um, as far as trying to reconcile things in a manner that not necessarily excuses it, but says, oh, things will be better, or oh, there's a silver lining. I don't know that you can say that in every circumstance. And I think that's terrifying for most people. It's terrifying for me.
It's pretty brutal.
It is. And it's frustrating. It's painful. It's enraging. I just learned of a boxer who lost his son, I believe. And again, like, that's something that's so hard hitting, because losing a child is just ridiculously painful. But I think out of all of it, I think what gets me through, um, there's a passage that talks about Jesus, that we don't have a Messiah or a priest who doesn't understand our pain. Gosh, I'm gonna cry. That we have one who knows what we've been through. And when I look at the Gospels, when I look at the New Testament, when I look at all the things throughout all of Scripture that points toward Jesus, and when I look at how he handled everything, knowing that he took on everyone's sin and everyone's pain, everyone's fallenness, everyone's brokenness. Knowing that he did that not just as God, but as a human, astounds me. I think so many times it's easy to skip over his humanity and just see him as the God that he is and was, and to see the miracles, to see the walking on water, the calming the waves, this, that, and the other.
It's easy to separate his humanity and his divinity, even though he was fully both.
Yeah, and yet, in all of the ways that he was human, he felt when Lazarus died, and he approaches Mary and Martha, and Mary's angry with him. He hurts. It says he experiences pain from that. And so seeing Jesus as a human and experiencing pain, and knowing that he walked right into the middle of all of it, knowing that there was hell on this earth, knowing that we have an adversary, knowing that we are going to struggle, knowing that he was going to be hated, knowing all of these things, and that he took that on. That's how I reconcile it, is that our God loved us that much, that he sent his only son. He sent Jesus, who was perfect and good in every way, and experienced the most brutal death, and such harassment and humiliation. And to have a God that embraced that willingly. One is mind-blowing, because it's completely different from every other religion, from every other God.
Exactly. It seems like in every other religion, whether it's an ideology in relation to, like, all of the things that we've had many conversations with over our time together so far.
Yeah.
It's basically like, it's the only one where God sacrifices himself for you instead of you having to sacrifice yourself or your body parts or your children for a little G God.
Yeah, there's a line and a Christian hip hop song that I like, and it's something, I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something like, when did you hear about um, the hero ever dying for the villain? And we all tend to look at ourselves and see ourselves as the main figure in our own lives because we kind of are, like, mentally. Um, and yet, we're one of billions and billions of people. And here is this God, and, a God has always historically been some deity or being that, or multiple beings that was elevated above humanity and was untouchable in some sense. And Jesus made himself touchable. He not only did that, but he entered into circumstances that, where other people would have said that he was unclean,
Mhm.
or that the circumstances were unclean. He walked into those, and because of his presence in them, made them clean. And he didn't do that from, somewhere up in the sky. He didn't do that from, somewhere far off. He did that one-on-one right next to us, um, as a human. So with all of the things that I've wrestled with, I think that's the thing that I come back to again and again is Jesus and his humanity, and how in his humanity, at least to me, it is so evident that he is God. Because I don't know another human being, I can't fathom another human being responding the way that he is recorded as doing so. It's just,
Absolutely.
it's remarkable to me.
To me as well.
I hope that answered your question somehow,
Yeah.
some way. So
It did. Thank you for blessing our listeners with that.
no, thank you guys.
Before we move on to the next question, we did get a Rumble rant.
Okay.
So, it was from Cody, and it said, "We love you, Hannah. Thank you so much." Hang on, bud. Sorry, guys.
No,
I'm
you're
doing
good.
my best.
You're good.
You want to hang out there? Okay. He's sitting on my lap right now.
I noticed Nancy said that Jesus can also take all the shattered pieces of our lives and put them back together. And, I would add to that, because I think that's true. But I think sometimes even the way he puts it back together isn't always, our idea of beautiful. But I do think, and this is something, to kind of circle back to, where we started with grandparents and some of the wisdom they've passed on, with them and some of the other people that I've known in my walk of faith. Something I've seen is that them doing just the smallest things for people, in times of brokenness or in times of difficulty, or for people when it might have seemed like a little thing to someone from the outside looking in, but to that person it meant so much.
Yeah.
The way that there's this effect of such a small thing helping someone else, and that encouraging that person just enough to be passed on to someone else. And the effect it starts to have as it grows out from there, because it's not linear. It's like it radiates in all directions. That that is something beautiful, and that is something that, um, you know, we're called to be a light. And I think that even when we're shattered with that light shining, um, even being shattered, that light can go in all different directions. It can be reflected and refracted a million different ways and continue to shine. So I think that's a great point, Nancy. Um, and even though it may not look, right to us, it can still be beautiful. It can still touch someone else. So reach someone else. So I think that's a
Absolutely.
good point. Yeah.
It also low-key makes me wonder if that's what the verse in the song Fireflies was actually about. Like, you would not believe your eyes if 10 million fireflies lit up the world as you fell asleep. It's
Yeah.
like intrusive
it's
thoughts.
it's really funny you mentioned that song, because that was one of the songs that Nick put on a, I don't know if it was a burned CD, or if it was like that old school, or if it was like on my iPod or phone, or what it was. I can't remember, but it was like one of the songs that we listened to when we first started dating. And so,
Aww,
yeah.
that's so
So,
cute.
yeah.
I love what Matt says here in the chat. Even as we are broken, the Lord knows where every piece is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true. I think that's a really, really good point, Matt, because I think even when we don't know where we are or where we're going, or, you know, what we look like, what things look like, God does. Um, and in those hard times, it's really, really hard to fully believe that.
Yeah.
Um, but I think to know it and maintain it as a belief, to have that as part of your hope. Um, I think that's a solid point, Matt. I think that's great.
It also kind of makes me wonder to an extent, and I'm not entirely sure how to word this, but like, I wonder if there's, if when like everybody says, you know how everybody says like sanctification is a process?
Hmm.
If there's different kind of like pathways of sanctification where it's like, okay, God is healing us from like our bad habits and helping us not to do, old, like engage in old sins anymore. But then is part of sanctification also healing from trauma? Do you think?
I would say so. Um, I don't, I don't know how everything fits in perfectly. That would be like a really extensive conversation I'd want to have,
Yeah.
um, because it's something to explore. But, and I don't think, like, it kind of depends on who you ask and what they qualify sanctification as,
What?
um, and what is being sanctified. Um, because I know, like, you have a very broad crowd that you talk
Yeah.
to here, and so I know, like, theologically there are some differences there. Um, but generally speaking, as far as the concept um, of God making us more and more whole, more and more holy, um, I definitely think that can definitely be a part of it. Um, I don't. I have a little bit of a background in psychology,
Mm-hmm.
and with that, I think it has its place. I think the church has its place. I think there's a part of me that thinks that the church could do better and that that would alleviate a lot of the issues with psychology,
Yeah.
um, or at least mental health issues, um, including trauma. Um,
I can see that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I definitely think that the spirit is always working in us and softening our hearts, writing His word on our hearts, and I think that I think it requires work, just like I would say essentially all sanctification. Um,
I think it also kind of goes in line too with like being good stewards of our resources.
yeah, yeah.
And
I Go
in
ahead.
a more tangible way, I think that another way that we can be, good stewards of our resources is by using Nimi skincare to make sure that we're protecting our skin. On faith, family, and freedom. It's paraben free and it's never tested on animals. All of these things matter so much to me, as does the fact that they source their ingredients from small American farms. Nimi Skincare loves America just as much as I do. And I know you'll love them too. That's why you should go to nimiskincare.com and use code BASEDBABE to save 10% off today.
That was phenomenal.
Thank you.
Well done.
But it actually does truly help. I use their stuff all the time. And one thing that I do really appreciate is that it is founded on faith.
I'm pretty jealous, actually. Hold that up again. Which is that up first?
Let me do the whole
Ooh.
influencer thing.
Ooh, love it.
Dude, they're like the first time I put the peptide cream on my skin, I was
Mhm.
like, what is this? Like this, like it was like so rich and thick, but it wasn't like greasy. And
Yeah,
dude, it was so amazing.
that sounds wonderful.
Yes. Aw, thank you
Better
guys.
than Brett Cooper.
Oh. But sanctification really is a process, and being a good
Mhm.
steward is really about making good choices with everything every day, whether it's our relationship with our spouse, with our husband, with our skin, with all of the amazing, wonderful things that God has given us.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, and earlier,
Mhm.
I mentioned like, it requires us putting in work, and I don't, again, the theology of however many different people are on here, but um, if there's 10 people, there's going to be at least 11 opinions. But uh, I don't mean to say, that it's like all workspace. Like I definitely am not, trying to say that necessarily. But I do think that part of the process of sanctification is us partnering with God,
Absolutely.
um, and us allowing Him to work in us and surrendering parts of us that aren't whole and that aren't at peace, that aren't full of Him. And so um, yeah, so there's definitely areas in life where that applies, and I think that includes trauma. I think that that certainly can. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Is that the 11th opinion?
probably maybe the 12th.
Lay down. Lay down. Oh. Thank you for bearing with him tonight, folks. um, Now, in what role has prayer played in your journey of faith and of healing?
Oh, good gracious. Okay. Um, whew. Let's see. Okay, so it's not like prayer should be a particularly conflicting thing. But when you take it as you talking to God,
Mhm.
like you would talk to, not just like you would talk to a friend, because God is God. Um,
I think
and
there's that like I think like yes, you absolutely have to pair that reverence with that relationship, and I think it goes hand
yeah,
in hand. But I
yeah,
also think that if you just have kind of like the reverence of if you were talking to the president, you would never actually be able to have that fatherly relationship with him.
right.
And so I think you have to acknowledge the sacredness, but also get out of your own way to a degree.
A
Uh,
thousand percent.
Like, at least for me.
No, 1,000%. It, I won't say their name, but there was a girl that I led a small group years ago, and she was like, "Can you pray to God while you're in the shower?" And I was like, "As long as you're not doing nothing freaky with it, like just like as long as you're praying to your Father." And like, I was like, I mean, he saw Adam and Eve, he walked with them, he made
Yeah.
you, he knit you, in your inmost being. He's known you since before your mother's womb. So, you know, you do you as long as you're not doing anything extra. But oh goodness. Yeah, prayer is another thing that's one, it's really important to me. Um, like if I tell you I pray for you on social media, I've at least prayed for you once already. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and but like the whole the whole reverence, and how did you put it? Pairing the reverence with the relationship. That's a
Mhm.
good way to put it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. On one hand, you have this supremely holy God who historically, like if you look at Moses's interactions with him in the Old Testament, like
Mm.
you can't even look at him because it would kill you.
Yeah.
um, and then you have the same God, you know, telling you to come boldly before his throne, um, that you're his child, and Jesus is calling you friend. Um, that gave me cold chills a little bit. Um,
Same.
yeah, and so I think it's important to remember that you are speaking to an all powerful, all knowing being. And at the same time, as you said so well, articulated so nicely, um, that you're called into a relationship, a personal, intimate relationship with this being. And so, and he doesn't just ask you to formally acknowledge his divinity and this, that, and the other, but he also wants you to talk to him. Um, so there's that to start with. That's just kind of wild to me. Um, is that dichotomy? But there's also, as far as prayer goes personally for me, um, I don't know. I pray all the time. I I pray short little prayers, kind of me talking to myself in my head. A lot of times is more so me talking to God. And I'm not like saying they're the same thing for everybody, but for me, a lot of times, if my inner dialogue is going
Mhm.
off, usually I'm trying to direct it to God, hoping that He will direct me to
Yeah.
better dialogue about things.
I'm very familiar with how that intertwines. In fact, today I actually had a prayer that I hadn't like officially prayed because I hadn't like necessarily opened up with, all the things
Yeah.
answered today. And I'm like, okay, I see you. I see you.
Yeah.
Okay, I accept the answer. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think it's good. I think it's good to have more formal periods of prayer.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's absolutely, I don't think it's just good. I think it's necessary, and not in the way of like you're going to hell if you don't do it, but in the fact of like, for me, I find it personally vital. Like I need to have times where I'm able to just go off and pray. Um, but then, like we just said, like there's also, like me in the car and the person in front of me and whatever they just did that was ridiculous. And,
Yeah.
me trying to also be prayerful about it. And so, there's that component of prayer in my life. Um, I've had prayers that have been just of the utmost seriousness, of the heaviest gravity. Um, whether that was for someone else or for myself. Um, and I've also had prayer that's just been silly and wonderful. And um, I'm just grateful, I guess, out of all of it, that we, again, and it kind of ropes back into us having this dynamic with Jesus where he entered into our humanity. But, um, I'm grateful that we get to pray in a way that is not just formal and is not just, we pick a specific time and do this, that, and
Yeah.
whatever ritual, um, but that we are invited to come before him and to speak our mind and speak boldly um,
Absolutely.
and be who he created us to be. So there's at least all of that, if not 20 other things to go into on prayer.
Yes.
So yeah.
I feel that very
Who's saying Nancy is a Fed?
much. Brenda.
Come on, Brendan, get a hold of yourself, man.
Oh.
Oh, Nancy. Your dad was involved in several secret missions. Oh, the drama.
I
Sure,
love
you're
our chat.
kidding.
We literally have the best community. Shout out to all of you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. We are not done yet, but just hit it now while you're here. Like, that way you don't forget later. Because, like, that'd be really rude.
I do need to make sure. I did take, let's see, one.
Mhm.
Well, I took more than one anonymous message. I had several actually. But what in the world? Um, I have, let's see. I
While
do
you're
have
pulling that up,
an, go ahead.
while
Sorry, what
you're
was that?
pulling that up, do you want me
Yes.
to ask you my next question, or do you want to pull that up first?
I think I have it pulled up.
Okay.
Um, but it's probably going to have nothing to do with your next question. So if you would like me to wait till the end, we can totally do that. If you want, a little dip in things, then we can do that too. Whatever you want.
Okay. How about we save that for the mailbag section at the end? Does
Sounds
that sound good?
perfect. That
Okay,
sounds
cool.
perfect.
So, is there can you share a moment where you felt a profound sense of clarity or peace after praying, or experiencing a moment like that from God?
Mm, let's see. Yes, many. Um, the one that brings to mind immediately is how much time do we have? I don't how much time has passed already?
A little over an hour.
Okay, goodness. I don't want to like keep everyone for days. Um, I don't want to bore everyone. Uh,
I don't think anyone could ever be bored by you.
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so are we talking like personal peace that we got from prayer, or can it be
Whichever one you want to share. I was going like more personal route, but
okay?
whatever you want to share.
Okay, so I would say I'll give you a quick one, a relatively quick one. Um, that was, well, okay. I have a couple. All right, we'll do this. Let me make sure I make notes so I don't just like ramble on and on. Okay, so
We're getting some comments in the chat that you are not, all caps, not boring,
okay.
and that they like your voice and you have a unique tone.
Oh, thank you guys. That makes me feel so good because I have always thought that I sound like a man. So, um,
Your voice is like hearing your voice when you like when I call you and you pick up and you're like hello. It's like when you cut into a pie and you just see the ooey gooey center that like you made from scratch after it was done like cooling on on a windowsill.
I think that's a good thing.
That's a massive compliment.
Okay.
It's like it's homey, it's comfy, it's cozy, it's like
Okay.
yay, she's here. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Good. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. Um,
They just want to talk to whoever said that.
no one, I don't know that, I don't know that just like any one person ever said that. I think it just like, I had plenty of bullying. We will go to battle. Okay. Um, I had plenty of bullying growing up. Uh, and again, not that doesn't even include the abuse and that sort of thing. And so I think in all of that, I don't have a particularly accurate view of myself. Um, apparently including my voice. So gratefully, because if I don't sound like a man, that's a good thing because I'm not. So, but okay, so
Quote
you asked.
Nancy, you sound like the lovely woman that you are.
I know Nancy's so sweet. I love you, Nancy. Who
And she's
doesn't love
internet
Nancy?
Santa, so like it
She's
has to be true.
wonderful. No, that's true.
She's the best. We love her.
We do indeed. Okay, so one instance of prayer where I found an immense sense of peace shortly after. Uh, the story is long. I won't get too far into it. But essentially, before Nick and I got together, I had been with someone on and off for about 5 years. And I loved him dearly. He was my best friend. He had gone through so many things with me. Um, and been such a comfort. And I'm still very grateful to this day for all those things. with that said, we would not have been good to stay together, for a number of reasons. Um, but there was a part of me at one point that was not so certain of that, and and I'm not really sure what brought me to it, but it all kind of coalesced right before the camp that Nick and I volunteer at.
Mhm.
Right before that happened, in June, and I was invited to go onto a trip with this young man and his family, and I said no, and and I went to camp instead, and um, being at camp every year is incredible. It's Springwell Bible Camp. Shout out to them. Uh,
I
their
know it's something I
motto,
really cherish.
oh my gosh, it's incredible. Their motto is where great things happen. And it could not be a more faithful motto. Like it's ridiculous the amount of things that have happened through that camp, um, at that camp as a result of it. It's incredible. One of those things was me going there and not with this young man and his family on their trip. And as soon as I got there, um, I ended up in a cabin with three other female counselors. And, I told them I'm having these guy problems, help. and uh, and by help, I mean pray for me because I need it.
Yeah.
And so immediately the four of us, like before any campers ever arrived, we, all kind of got to know each other, and that was kind of the icebreaker. And we four of us prayed together, and all throughout that week, I continued to pray on it. Was I supposed to be with this young man?
Mhm.
Was I not? Um, was there something else? Was there someone else? And little did I know, another young man, although older, quite a bit older than me, uh, had been talking to one of my co-counselors about me, and I thought he was into her, honestly, because like I saw them walk off several times, talking in the middle of the night, and I'm like, okay, I'll go do your thing, whatever you're talking about, like, but
In the middle of the night.
yeah, yeah, and at the end of the week, that co-counselor who became a good friend, she just like laughed in my face and was like, "No, we were talking about you." Like, so one of the things that I've prayed about and felt a great deal of peace over, uh, was that whole circumstance in my life was, who was I supposed to be with? Who was I supposed to love? Who was I supposed to give my heart to? Ultimately, who was I supposed to marry? And um, giving up that relationship that I had had was not easy. It was extremely difficult. Um, at the same time, God made it so clear, through Nick, amongst many other things, that uh, that he had someone else, that he had something else in mind for me. And so, there was a point during that week where I just went out to the softball field. I asked my co-counselors, like, do you guys have all the little ones? Like, you have the tiny humans? And they're like, we've got them. you go pray, go do your thing, and went out to the softball field and just sat out there for a moment and just, cried, knowing that I was gonna have to say goodbye to this, person who had become my best friend, and at the same time elated um, that God had someone else. At least that I had this sense that God had someone else in mind for me, and I'm so grateful He did, because it gave me my husband. It gave me Nick, and
We certainly praise Jesus for that. He's a really good dude.
he's like no one else outside of Jesus. He is the best man to have walked this earth. Um, and everyone can say otherwise. And I realize every wife has their own love for their husband, but y'all can just be wrong and and, and love your own husband.
He's truly a gem, and I absolutely love that we both feel that way about our husbands, and that our husbands are also friends, which is like super cute.
Yes. Yeah. You're not supposed to tell them that. We can't tell them those things.
I cannot believe that they are friends. This is very
I
much
know.
fun.
Oh. So there's that. Um, all the warm fuzzy stuff. He is great. So I would say there's a great sense of peace in my love life, if that's what you want to call it. Um, Another time that stands out to me was in praying for my adoptive mom, after she found out that she had endometrial cancer. And it was a type of cancer that typically spreads extremely fast. It's typically pretty aggressive and often results in death. They caught it early, extremely early. And the doctor that performed the surgery, she was extremely stern. Like, if she was a Grey's Anatomy character, she was Christina Yang, at least, but like probably not that nice. And so she was very sterile, and my aunts asked, like, are you sure she's the right doctor for her? And I was like, yeah, like, she's taking this seriously. She's paying attention. And
sorry if I'm getting choked up. When I was 7, my mom got diagnosed with cancer, and when they opened her up, because they had originally thought that she needed gallbladder surgery, they found it all throughout her system, stage 4, and they believe that that is the same kind of cancer that she had had.
I'm so sorry. I'm even knowing what I do about you, I didn't know that was specifically it.
Sorry,
I'm
I
so
didn't think that
sorry.
was gonna make
No,
my
it's okay.
eyes a little wet
No,
there, but
that's okay.
continue.
No, that's okay. Um, this is one of those things that, before I do finish up with this is one of those things I think is, like, of course, the episode I'm in is the one wrestling with God, and it's going to make you wrestle with God, because as much as I love both of my mothers, neither of them are perfect. And one of the things that I had to face in the middle of her having cancer was us being honest about the environment that we grew up in, that I grew up in, that she was involved in. And And part of that was acknowledging that there was abuse in our household, that things weren't always right, that things weren't always good.
Yeah.
And to know that you had a mother you loved dearly, and that I don't want to. If this is too much, please tell me, and I'll move on. But to know that you had that ripped from you, um, whereas mine, with circumstances that were less than ideal, to put it nicely,
Yeah.
was saved. This is one of those things that I think seems irreconcilable. Like I don't think this is one of those things that it's like, oh, there's this happy ending here on earth. Like it doesn't tie up neatly and prettily, and it's bitter, and it stays bitter.
The thing is, though, the thing for me, and I think it kind of is a small reflection of heaven,
Mhm.
is that a lot, if that hadn't happened, right? And I'm not saying that it was worth it or some crazy screwed up thing like
Right,
that.
right.
So, like, chat, please hear me when I say this. Not saying that, I'm saying this. I'm saying that all of the good that still happened afterwards was able to happen in such a way, and it may not have been available to me in that same way had
Yeah,
I not experienced the certain circumstances.
yeah,
I wouldn't have ended up in the town that I was working and doing childcare in, and Kyle, like, that would have been two very, very different states. And he, like, never went to my hometown
yeah,
until now for his job. I never would have met Kyle. I never would have met a lot of people that helped me become the person that I am today. I would be a very different woman, most likely. And there were still blessings afterwards. And I kind of think, like, if all of this bad can still have good at the end of it, how much more so can God continue to turn everything for good in the lives of those who love him?
yeah,
And, like, I'm not gonna, sit here and tell you it doesn't suck. I'm not gonna tell you that I didn't have a panic attack at my freaking high school graduation, because even though I knew my entire life she wasn't gonna be there, it still very much hit different when,
yeah.
oh, hey, guess what? She wasn't there.
Right.
But, and it's something that Kyle actually has saved on his calendar the day she died, because he knows that even if I'm not, like, cognizant of that fact, that he still wants to be, just in case, because there's a lot of generational things there.
Yeah,
And he's definitely been an incredible support to me in that way.
yeah. Well, I do know, as part of all of that, that God has crafted you into the woman and the being that you are now, the spirit that you are now, and that person has been an immense comfort and encouragement and support to me. And so I'm extremely, extremely grateful. Um, and I know that there are so many other people who feel that way. So um, I think, if anything, you yourself are evidence that God does work in all things. That what the enemy means to harm us with, that He creates good from it. Um,
And an
to
ultimate
Go
blessing,
ahead.
too, was that even though it was for such a short, compact time, my mom stuffed a lot of good into that time. She literally was, and still is to this day, even though, we're currently separated,
Yeah,
that she was my hero. Like, she was a magnetic, legendary babe. 15, 20 years after she had passed, people would
yeah,
come up to me. I wouldn't know who the heck these people are. And they would be like, oh, you're so and so's daughter. And be like, who the heck are you? Yeah, I mean, I am, but like, also, who are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
At one point, people literally thought I had like healing powers just because of who my mother was. And it's like, what? Like, I get she was really rad, but like, no.
We're gonna have to hear more about that sometime. I feel like we need another episode about that. Because I want to hear about this. But to wrap up
Yes.
the second example, I don't know why. There are a lot of things in my spiritual life and in prayer particularly. I don't know why because it's not just a feeling, like it's not just an emotion. Um, and it's not even just a sensation like you would experience from something you touch or hear, or it's something more than that. But we'll call it a sense.
If I may, and like
Yeah.
if I'm wrong about this, because like we had last week, God speaks to us all in different ways and all of these things, which awesome episode. Thanks again, Jeff. Make sure you guys check that out. But is it kind of like an all-consuming knowing where you almost feel down to your bone marrow that this is what is like the thing?
Yeah, and
Because that's
sometimes
how. Mhm.
sometimes it's not even all consuming, because sometimes I think I try to ignore it, and then
And then it
then
keeps popping back up like you're playing a
mm,
game of whack-a-mole.
yeah, yeah. And
Maybe.
I think that's the spirit. And yeah. And he's a good friend. He doesn't go away. So uh but I had this, if people want to call it intuition or whatever they want to call it, it was very much a knowing, an assurance that she was not going to die from this. And it wasn't just because I was confident in her Christina Yang. It wasn't just because um, I had done, I don't know how many nights of research about the cancer, because that's something I do. I was just,
Yes.
yeah, dive in
Yeah.
and read about everything. Um, it wasn't, there was nothing really to explain why I felt the way that I did, but there was this certainty that she was not going to die from this. And so I prayed over it again and again and again. Um, every time I drove from, at the time we lived in Birmingham, Alabama, every time I drove from there to Louisville, Kentucky,
Mhm.
um, to see her, and finally for her surgery. And when I got there the night of her surgery, she had just finished up with it um, when I finally arrived, and I went back into her room, and she was cognizant for for maybe a minute or two. Um, she, had heavy anesthesia and still recovering from the effects of that, but she she was grateful I was there. And then before I left her room, and before I went and got a place to stay nearby,
Mhm.
I just knelt by her bed and prayed. And there was just this sense that things had already been taken care of, that she was okay. Um, but I prayed that God would not only heal her, um, but that he would give her, not just restore her life, but give her greater life. That that for all of the things that she had experienced in the past, for all of the difficult subjects that we had to discuss throughout the process, all of the history from our family and the dysfunction, and that with all of that in the past, that she would go on to live a fuller life, that not just a fuller life, but life to the fullest. The life that Jesus came to give her, and that she would be able to flourish and thrive and come back from that stronger. And there was just a peace that was going to happen. And sure enough, she is she's now got, let's see, 3 recently. She had 2 girl grandbabies and just got her third.
That's amazing.
Third little boy grandbaby. But she has 3 grandbabies, and she has a wonderful husband who I'm extremely grateful for. And he loves the Lord and loves her. And
that's amazing. Praise Jesus.
Yeah. So that there was a great sense of peace over, and I needed that personally during that time, for a number of reasons, and apparently she had overheard the conversation too, so, or the prayer too. So it's something that helped her as well. There's so many stories of prayer that I could go into. There's another one I could go into, but I think I'll save it for another time, because there's just so much more.
Yeah.
But those are 2 that I recall with a good amount of favorability. So yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for all of the insights that you've shared with us today. We truly, truly have explored what matters together, and I really appreciate you coming on and spending this time and being honestly a very valued and wonderful and cherished part of our community.
Thank you. It's an honor to be on here. I really I'm kind of shocked that I am on here at all. One, because I am not just completely ditzy after being hit over the head with a chalkboard. And
Starting from the chalkboard, now we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. And, but no, it's an honor. And I do, if we have time, I do want to.
Yes, we will do those in just one moment, babes. Okay?
Okay. All right.
On the app formerly known as Twitter. That's right, it is mailbag time, so make sure